Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for this IPM webinar series. In this episode, we'll be exploring insightful research conducted by our members N2O into how brands can become genuine year-round allies of the LGBTQIA community. For those of you that don't know, today actually marks the start of Pride Month, with a number of campaigns and initiatives taking place throughout the month to generate positive awareness for the LGBTQIA community. But what it's important to know, particularly for brands, is the importance and emphasis that must be made on positively engaging with the community the whole year round, ensuring that the values and ethos of a brand truly align with the community and resonate throughout everything that they do to showcase true authenticity. Taking you through the research today, I'm delighted to welcome N2O's Strategy Director, Stephen Workman, and Art Director, Emily Shahai. And we also welcome TV presenter and media personality, Sade Giliberti, who took part in the research. Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Hello.
Super. For those of you wishing to ask questions, there should be a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So feel free to ask your questions in there as we're going through, and we'll aim to cover these at the end. I'd now like to hand you over to Steve and Emily, who are going to take you through the research.
Thanks very much for that introduction, Emma, and welcome everyone to the webinar, and happy Pride Month. If you haven't downloaded our recent white paper on Pride and allyship, this session should give you a kind of snapshot of what's in the report. There's further in-depth reading there. So if you don't know us already, N2O, we're an independent marketing agency, and our proposition is we win fans for brands. And we do that through insight-led brand experiences at home, in store, out of home and online. And we cover a wide range of disciplines, from experiential, where you'll see us pop up with activities for big brands at music festivals, food festivals. You'll see us in city centres and in the destination shopping malls across the UK. We also do in and out of home sampling. We have a smart mass sampling service where we can deliver targeted samples direct to people's doorstep. And we work across shopper and retail marketing, and also influencer marketing, where we manage social media accounts for brands. So a little bit of detail on us. We have 160 plus employees, getting back up now to the strength we were pre-COVID. Unfortunately, the events and experiential industry was severely impacted, but we're well on our way to recovery. We are the UK's #1 creative brand experience agency, and I say that being endorsed by the awards and recognition on the right-hand side of the page. We won the FMBE Brand Experience Agency of the Year, 3 golds, 3 Popeyes, and we are shortlisted for the prestigious Campaign Agency of the Year this year. So fantastic stuff. So not bragging, we do believe that we're #1, and we turned over 26 million, privately owned, and been in business for 23 years. So I guess it's a key question is, why are we talking about Pride? Why do we feel that we can be a voice as an agency? Well, we work with the clients here that you can see, and some other smaller brands, and these clients are long-time supporters of Pride and LGBTQIA+ rights. They support charities that work all year round to support the community. So, for example, Superdrug partners year round with Switchboard LGBT plus helpline, and Boots work with the Stonewall partnership. And there's smaller initiatives like Boots launched a Bright Palettes makeup range for Pride, and 100% of the profits went to Stonewall. So all the brands we work with have very supportive DEI policies. That's diversity, equity, and inclusion, if you're not familiar with the acronym. And here at N2O, we, as an agency ourselves internally, we cultivate a culture that encourages colleagues to learn from one another and become allies. We conduct in-house training and development programs focusing on inclusion and diversity, and we support those undergoing gender reassignment, whether that's in mental health or the logistics of the process. And also we're continually looking for new ways to improve to become better allies. So before we dive into some of the key findings in our white paper, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the methodology. As a company working across any brand or product or client, we use a mix of paid and free research tools. And typically on the paid side, we use Kantar, TGI, and Mintel. Clients will share research with us, and some of that comes from big organisations like dunnhumby, and we also do some trade press research, but the free research comes through desk research and what we can beg, steal or borrow. So big thanks to people who have lent us or given us white papers. For example, GWI shared a sort of recent paper that they put out, Forrester, UK Pride Network, and National LGBT Survey from YouGov. What we do is we like to look at the insights and make sure that there's a trend occurring across everything that we look at. So rather than just looking at one piece of research, assuming that everything is great and pushing that out as gospel, we cross-reference everything so that it isn't biased and one-sided. And because we wanted to, when we were looking specifically at Pride, we wanted to sort of sense check our findings and dig a little bit deeper with sort of bespoke questions. We ran a community panel face-to-face, and Sade, who you'll hear from later, was a member of the panel. So why did we produce a white paper? Through conversations with brands, it seemed that there was a knowledge gap. Some brands aren't sure how to connect with the community, but they do want to show their support, which is, fantastic, it's positive. And I guess it's not one size fits all. So a float might be the right approach for one brand. Talking about their employee support might be appropriate for another. No reason, why you can't do both. But we did have one brand who came to us, said that they'd like to appear at Pride with a float. And I won't go into the details. I mean, they're a great brand, but slightly controversial, and we said, give your employees the day off, give them some nice t-shirts saying that you gave them the day off and send them to Pride, and then maybe in a couple of years' time you can have a float. So we do advise and tailor what we do to brands. And with the white paper, purpose wasn't simply to make sure brands behave appropriately, but supportively. So we want to move from lip service to seeing a step change in, how the community is treated and, gain an equal opportunity. So for brands, really, the key question you should really ask yourself is, what's in it for the community? Not what's in it for my product. And don't get me wrong, being at Pride, having a float, rainbow packaging, that's fantastic for visible support. Don't give that up. Definitely keep doing what you're doing. But, every rainbow counts. But let's think about how we can move on to the next level. You'll be asking what the next level is, and I'll come on to explain that shortly. But, historically, I guess the term pink pound, which I heard bandied about probably in the 90s, said more about brands' intentions, about untapped revenue rather than human rights. Excuse me. So thankfully, all the brands we work with are supportive and inclusive, not only at Pride, but within their own organisations and within their recruitment policies and the way they treat their staff. So then we've got one stat here that really jumped out, but it's probably indicative of the key findings of the whole paper and something that I want to spend a little bit of time elaborating on. So when we gave the white paper a title, our working title initially was Standing Proud at Pride, but then we added the and beyond, and the and beyond is really the pivotal part of that title. I've alluded to it, but the big thing that came across is that the community want support all year round. It's worth saying that with the stats that you see, the survey only went out to community members. So it's 74% of the community want the support. It wasn't, to every household in the UK, for example. So when you see the figures, just be aware that this is from the horse's mouth, so to speak. This is what the community want, not just what Joe Public might feel was appropriate, but might get the wrong end of the stick. So I've said it before, Pride Month's very much welcomed, but year-round support is what we need if we want to see equality moving forward. And, that stat, 74%, is really compelling. When I talk about other statistics, because I deal with data day in and day out, I sometimes get questions of, does that mean that in this instance, 26% didn't want support? No, it doesn't mean that. It's not as clear cut. Usually you'll have, do you feel really strongly you want support? Do you feel neutral about it? Do you not have an opinion, and do you not want support? And the people, I can't remember the exact figures, but it might have been 1% that didn't feel that they needed year-round support. And those are maybe the type of people who are in great situations, great supportive relationships, friends, employers, not under attack on a daily basis. So bear in mind when you look at the figures, any figures we show you really are the top compelling figures. And as I said, keep up that support within Pride, but let's look at how we can add that support year round. So some other stats that sort of jumped out were that 54% want brands to educate people on community issues, culture and misconceptions. So it appears there's still seems to be misunderstandings that can be addressed. It might be around terminology. You might be scared of doing the wrong thing, saying the wrong thing. So reach out. You'll find us on LinkedIn. You'll find Sade on LinkedIn. Just reach out and ask what's the problem. We can help. 43% want brands to support customer communities and forums. So enabling those safe spaces is, really vital and important. If you look at social media, it's quite easy to come under attack on a daily basis for even the most inane, neutral post that you put up. You'll put someone's nose at a joint. So if you're in a minority, and people can be a bit more vicious, it's great to have spaces where people can feel that they're safe to talk about their issues and communicate with like-minded individuals. When it comes to inclusive working practices, employees care about diversity, obviously in the place where you're going to work, but also with the brands that they want to buy from. So I'm not saying that, the community are checking out your page 93 on your annual report of your sort of DEI policies, but if you're called out on social media, for any malpractice, they will notice it. So, you know, behave internally as if all eyes are on you, you know, as well as the way you behave on shelf and at parades. So hopefully that gives you a little bit, you know, that's maybe 5 points we've covered there that can give you a little bit of guidance on, you know, the ways that you can move forward this year and engage with the community. And there was some fantastic news. Like I said, these are the sort of top figures, you know. So brands are generally seen as respectful to the community. That's fantastic. And they're seen as being supportive. I'll just reiterate the point. It doesn't mean that 45% think that brands aren't respectful. You know, it was maybe like 5%. And some people feel that, you know, having a corporate influence anywhere is a negative. You know, you can even see that at music festivals that are branded, but without the brand support, the message wouldn't get as far and wide. So what I'll do is I'll hand over to Emily and Sade now, and they can take you through a little bit more detail of some of the stuff that jumped out in the report.
Thanks, Stephen. Go ahead and head to the next slide. There we are. Thank you. So while Pride is an upbeat occasion for LGBTQ plus people, along with allies, to come together, it is essential to remember that Pride and its history is not confinable to an annual celebratory events. We live as we are 365 days of the year. We have been, and we still are, a marginalized range of demographics, which must fight daily for the right to live and be accepted as we are. Pride is the party that brings light to our communities in the midst of the challenges we face the rest of the year. With more than 1.5 million individuals attending Pride in London last year alone, the tube is a mess, plus nearly 200 other Pride events countrywide, it's a major opportunity for brands to demonstrate clear allyship. At Pride, brands can contribute as proactive supporters so long as they're approaching it with the good intentions. Speaking of good intentions, Sade, you had some really excellent points on this one. Can I hand it over to you?
Yes, thank you very much, Emily. Indeed, because I think the most important part, like you said, is that even though Pride is a party, and we even have it here with Shah saying it, it is first a protest, and people need to remember that because it's important for people to understand where we are coming from. But I think the most important thing as well is that we just want to know that brands are true supporters of the community. These are my own words, as opposed to jumping onto the Pride bandwagon and then monetizing that. So if we go to the next slide, I can then elaborate a little bit more. I think it's a case of so many people within the community having a sense of cynicism when it comes to so many brands out there not talking the talk and not walking the walk. So I know this firsthand. I've seen how LGBTQ plus people have scrutinized brands for coming for jumping onto the bandwagon, for adding rainbows to their products, rainbow washing, and they're not actually caring about the community, our rights, or anything for that matter. They're just there for the clout. I watched a story of a community member a few years back who literally was destroying brand after brand on Instagram. And some of those brands are even associated with a brand that I work closely with, which is Superdrug. Now, I know Superdrug talk the talk because not only do they support Switchboard charity, they also support many, many groups of people in general, women, trans people, non-binary people, people with disabilities, the LGBTQ plus community, and they have so many amazing initiatives that you can actually find on their website. It's like there for you, like the Naked Academy, for example. Going back to the story that I watched, that alone just shows that within the community there is scrutiny because yes, I know that Superdrug and their partners support the community, but Harry at home, not a real person, isn't sure what Vaseline does or how Vaseline has actually said something about supporting the community or how they do it. Again, an example. But if one had to go even deeper into that, you would know that Vaseline is in fact under Unilever, and Unilever were awarded Gold Employer Top 100 in 2021 and third place in the retail FMCG category in Stonewall Workplace Equity Index. Unilever also signed the Declaration of Amsterdam. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a universal declaration of human rights, which states that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Now, why that's important is because it's visibility. And that's very important to us. We can Google it, we can see it, and then we can call you out if you are not walking the walk that you claim to talk. And I think that's so important about having the best intentions. I have unfortunately worked with brands that did just slap on a rainbow and did a call to action during Pride Month and then were never seen or heard from again. And a huge lesson learned from my end about that, and also making sure that I pay attention to the brands that I work with. But we want brands to truly embody who we are within the community and what we care about. It's about understanding who we are, our politics, our issues, and supporting us not only during Pride Month, but 365 days a year.
Thank you, Sade. Those are some incredible examples. So moving on to, we're talking about having good intentions, but let's talk a little bit more about how we start act on those intentions. On the next slide, in our research, 73% of respondents say that they choose a brand because of their stance on LGBTQ plus issues. So that stance needs to be believable. Brands have to be very careful of performative allyship. That's basically adding a rainbow to a logo for a month or putting a rainbow in a package in hopes that it sells better. Even something as simple as using the updated Pride flag can help show your awareness and a more informed understanding. The LGBTQ plus community wants to be accepted a lot more than they want rainbow products. The issues faced by the community are plentiful, they are intricate, and the market demands a commitment to allyship instead of pandering for money. Performance activism isn't new. We have seen media savvy consumers call brands out for all kinds of hypocrisy, as Sade has mentioned, and this makes launching rainbow washing campaigns solely for the duration of Pride Month both a poor moral and a poor commercial decision. Sade, what have you observed on this subject? Anything you'd like to add?
I mean, I think the most important part on this is if you're going to be a true ally, it is important to start within more than anything else, because your intention on how you are going to showcase your brand to us on the outside world starts from within, which is just like, it's the same saying as like charity begins at home. It's basically the same kind of thing. And that's allyship starts from within, so we want to know that within your brand and your company, you really do have diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you have a safe space for LGBTQ plus people, and you hire LGBTQ plus people and people with disabilities and people of color and people of all shapes and sizes. We want to know that because that makes us trust you a little bit more as a brand. And again, if we have to go on to the next slide, which then allows me to elaborate a little bit more on the allyship. We have, for example, Adam over here, who is from Tesco, and we all know this. People aren't perfect, businesses aren't perfect, but that little bit that is done every single day to make a difference is so important. It's about unlearning and relearning and doing what's best. And to touch on what I said about, if we know that we can trust you as a brand and what you do within speaks volumes, you'll see that 32% say that poor treatment of staff would discourage anybody from buying anything from that brand. And it is absolutely true. You wouldn't go and buy something that you thought, that you knew, for example, a product tested on animals and you're an animal lover. Why would you go and support that brand? You wouldn't. So I completely think that it is about starting within. How else are you going to understand the language and the best way to communicate with us, the needs and the wants of the community, if you as a company have not made those changes within or created a safe space for those who work for you? Hearst, for example, who publish magazines, have an LGBT community within their company, made up of people within the community who is made up of people within the community as well as strong allies, who not only help the company unlearn and relearn language, behaviors, and so much more, because honestly, at the end of the day, we are constantly learning. They also host talks and events within the company and invite LGBT entertainers and speakers to come in and speak to their employees on the importance of DEI, but also the importance of understanding the community through different eyes and perspectives of the community, and mostly importantly, the importance of inclusive language when you're standing around the cooler or the kettle in the morning. Not all gay language is going to land. Something that a cis-het white gay man may say may not work for a gay South Asian man, or may not be the language of a lesbian. It's not to say that you have to break it down for the LGBTQ plus, and every single letter, but in order to have the right marketing and messaging for the community, you have to listen to those within your company. So don't say you are inclusive and diverse, be inclusive and diverse, because those diverse people who work for you can help you better communicate with the outside world through your products. I also think that it's very important to think out of the box when it comes to advertising. LGBTQ plus people want to feel seen and be heard. So use authentic people in your ads and your campaigns, from mixed race couples to different shapes and sizes. Showcase people of all sorts of disabilities, whether you can see them, whether you can't. Show us and use us, 365 days a year. And even if it is in the most subtle way ever, the purpose is we want to get to a point where LGBTQ plus is normalized and not this external thing that we constantly need to tippy toe around eggshells about, So normalize LGBTQ plus people in your campaigns and your ads, because we will see it and we will appreciate it.
That's excellent, Sade. Thank you. In terms of really good examples we've seen at N2O for allyship from within, certainly we've helped develop the Pride campaigns for Tesco, who have supported Pride for over 10 years. They've been lead sponsor, lead float at last year's London Pride Parade, and that allyship is evident at its core. So what they're doing is respected. So and then to follow on about knowing your audience, which Sade covered excellently there, thank you. Yeah, I mean, in terms of brands, along with their internal sorts of getting their house in order and treating people with equality in their own workforce and setting up these policies that support various people. In terms of externally, when brands are showing their and developing their marketing campaigns, depicting people across the spectrum, and do that successfully, understanding who the people they're depicting are as people, who their audience are as people, and having those conversations, having those panels, running focus groups. Ultimately, understanding the individuals you are trying to help is critical to success at Pride. Thank you. I think that's what we had to cover today.
So I'll just take over and round up some fantastic points there, and nice to see lots of passion coming across. I guess some of the sort of takeouts are, look at creating an inclusive workplace and culture, through that employee support. And the sort of example of Hearst that Sade mentioned was, absolutely spot on. It sounds like they're doing a fantastic job and would be a great place to work. Also look at how you can influence that change for the community. Attending this webinar is a great start. If you haven't read our white paper, you can read that. Reach out to people on the panel here. And I mentioned it before, but if you're interested, we'd be happy to run a workshop for you. The way that would work is that we talk about specific brands, what you could and should be doing, what messages you should be talking about, and what sort of position you're in. The brand that I mentioned earlier that we didn't suggest taking a float to Pride, their DEI policies were fantastic. They were doing a brilliant job internally. So we said to them, let's focus on getting that internal message out and talk about what you're doing as an employer. Inclusive year-round advertising is another area. I know we'll probably talk about it later with Emma, but brands don't need to have a big budget. If you've got a budget to send models to a photo shoot, then make sure the models are inclusive. It's a no-brainer. Don't just think they'll be inclusive for Pride and then we can go back to a generic couple in our advertising for the rest of the year. So think about what you're doing and how you could push that, do a little bit more, posting those supportive messages on social media throughout the year, celebrating staff who are members of the community and your customers, donating to the LGBTQ plus charities obviously goes a long way. I did say that the people who are using charities have that greater need state, so it's a great way that you can offer help. And finally, I guess, collaborate with and support LGBTQ plus businesses. This isn't an exhaustive list, but hopefully it gives you some sort of clear ways that you can move forward, even if you only action one of these. So back to you, Emma.
Super, thank you very much. Thanks to everybody that's participated today and taken us through that really insightful research. I found it really interesting. As I mentioned at the top of the webinar, if you've got any questions, do feel free to post those in the Q&A box at the bottom. I do have a couple of questions. So one of the things that obviously you pull through in the report and that you highlight as well is a key way to support the LGBTQIA plus communities is obviously through financial contribution. But how can brands who might not be able to contribute financially still engage in positive communication and help support the community in other ways?
I'll jump in here, I guess. Sorry, Sade, but just it kind of goes over some of the points that were covered, but it's like, making an effort in the way you communicate, being respectful, that support and respect is highly valued. So, think about the words that you use, ask, test with a focus group. Are we saying the right thing? How does this come off? Make a visible effort. So, there's no reason why, if you've got DEI policies in place that are fantastic, talk about those. You don't need to have a product on shelf to do that. Celebrate, I mentioned it, staff and customers, and be inclusive in your year-round advertising. I mean, some of the points that I spoke about before, but those are all at zero cost to brands.
Additionally, brands have this amazing platform to put positive messages out there. Negative messaging tends to be very loud, and so brands taking a positive stance can help counter that. And positive, accurate portrayals of queer people in advertising helps break down stereotypes that people may have.
100%. You both covered everything I needed to say.
Well, I was going to say it's quite interesting if you look at which I was doing this morning for another brief that I'm looking at. It's a frozen dessert, and I was looking at Ben & Jerry's page, expecting it to be, I know that they're really active and they do some fantastic work, supporting all types of communities, but, their page has become more of a political platform now, and they're talking about the refugee issue and disseminating videos, and you see a little bit of backlash. Like one person said, I'm not going to buy Ben & Jerry's anymore because you're too political, which, when the politics is a good cause, it seems an unusual reason, and particularly when, dare I say, even though I'm working on a competitor brand, Ben & Jerry's tastes great. So, them supporting a good cause and they taste great. Oh my God, you must really have a bee in your bonnet to walk away from that brand. But, they're using as Emily said, they're using the social media, they're using their power to get messages out there. We know what their brand tastes like. We know what flavour variants they have. Tell us something new that's important to us, and they're certainly doing that.
Brilliant. Great examples. And kind of just to elaborate a little bit as well in terms of how do you think, you know, as an agency and working in marketing, how do you think maybe brand partnerships could play a positive role in driving positive change and awareness in the community?
Anyone want to take this, or will I jump in? Well, I guess it would depend on who the partnership's with. Obviously, any brand, for any reason that considers a affinity partnership, will be, you know, having it's a brand of equal size, or it's brands that can leverage each other in a certain way. Obviously, beyond the feel-good factor, you know, brands do like to be visible, and they get that from partnerships. The partner, whoever they are, if it is a Stonewall, for example, you know, they get the brand support, they get that wider audience. So, you know, partnerships as a low-cost way also. I know that wasn't specifically what you were alluding to there, but it definitely is a way that, you know, people can maximise their message and get it out there on the back of a big brand. But there may be brands that want to come together who have sort of common interests, who are actually products themselves. You know, and you know, I would wholeheartedly encourage that. The more that you can do, if you have a small budget and you team up with someone else who can add their budget to, and, you know, maximize your message, you know, definitely go ahead and do that.
Can I just add in for brands who also look at maybe using like entertainers or influencers or anything like that? I think the most important thing in this case is finding personalities, people, entertainers, influencers that actually work with the brand, that match the brand's ethos, and it's an authentic kind of collaboration. Because what also tends to happen a lot is a brand will just go, right, we just need the hottest LGBT people. It doesn't matter if they don't buy our products or never would or has never even walked into our store. It doesn't matter. They've got 1.5 million followers. We need them. And then you see this ad circulating on social media and you're like, that is the most inauthentic ad I've ever seen, because I know that Joe does not use power tools, or that Joe has a washing machine and will never wash their, you know, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like it just has to be authentic. And I think that's the most important part for brands, is if you're going to go and find influencers or celebrities or whoever it is to speak about your brand during Pride or any time, please just make sure it is authentic, because we see right through it, and there's nothing worse than seeing an ad and just going, wow, you literally just did that for the clout, or you just did that because you know that Joe has 1.5 million followers.
I definitely agree with that. I think we've seen NYX, you know, give over their platform to community members and content creators, and they really think it through, and they do that monthly, so not just during Pride. So they do consider who they are, you know, partnering with, if it is an influencer, and what sort of messages they're getting out there. But, you know, being switched on all year round is, you know, absolutely hits the spot.
Yeah.
I think that leads on quite well actually to the next question, in simply being kind of, what sort of advice would you give to brands and businesses that are wanting to positively engage with the LGBTQIA plus community but are really worried about getting it wrong?
Hey, oh, on you go, Sade.
No, I was just this was honestly, it's going to be very quick from my end. I would say take on the kind of the thing that Hearst does, which is inviting LGBTQ plus people, speakers, entertainers, whoever it may be, into your workspace to have that open conversation with the people that work for you and have that honest conversation with you, because that way you are literally hearing everything from the horse's mouth, and it's so much easier to understand. Of course, you know, again, if you have the community, the committee within your business, it will also help, because you have the people there who can help guide you in the right way. But I think it's also about inviting people over to have that conversation about language, about communication, about the best way of going forward with things, about inclusive language, because how else are you going to know or learn if you don't know or learn from the people that you're trying to reach?
100%. I touched on it earlier, but it's, you know, if you're not sure about what you're doing, or you're taking those initial sort of tentative steps. Ask, reach out. We're happy to help however we can. We're happy to run another focus group, and the focus group that we ran for the white paper, there was so much valuable content that came out of it for us, and valuable learnings, and condensing it into the white paper, which is quite a meaty volume of work, was quite difficult. But having people telling you what you should be doing and exactly how you should do that is, you can't beat that. So, don't guess. I mean, we talked earlier about being respectful, so if you just guess, that's not being respectful. Just, I think this, so I will say this. It's like, I've asked, and this is what I'm saying is right. You might find one person who calls you out on social media and you don't get it 100% right. But if you've gone to all the effort of speaking to people in the community and, working through your ideas, you can hold your head up confidently. And think, to cite another example, Amazon's Glamazons are the internal Amazon LGBTQIA plus group, and they're formed of employee members, and their sole job is to monitor what Amazon does internally, externally, and give it guidance to make sure that it's seen as an inclusive company. So setting up a group within your own organisation if you can, or speaking to HR. HR should have some good information at the moment, and they should be able to point you in the right direction. So just to sum up again, I guess, ask if you don't know.
Super. Great stuff. Look, that's it for the questions today. Thank you again to everyone that's participated in today's webinar, and thank you everyone as well that's logged on and joined us. Information on the report and how you can download a copy of the report will be with you in an email. If you have any further questions or would like to get involved in the IPM webinar, please contact info@theipm.org.uk. Once again, thank you to everyone at the N2O, Stephen, Emily, and thank you, Sade, as well, for being involved. It's been really insightful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.